Hey guys, I'm Anna,
And I'm Emily.
and welcome back to our new podcast,
Ruminate.
Today we're going to be talking about the difference of the oldest versus the youngest,
Sibling dynamics and the order in which the kids were born.
Before we start, I want to say that there are good and bad things for being the oldest and being the youngest. Neither is better or worse.
There's pros and cons to everything, and I think it definitely applies to this.
Yes.
So first of all, to clarify, I am the oldest in my family, and Anna is the youngest. We made a list of different situations and how we are treated differently within those situations.
Yeah, it's for further clarification, I'm the youngest of 5.
And I'm the oldest of 3, but there is a pretty big age gap between me and my siblings. There's 7 years, and they're twins, so they're the same age.
Same with mine. We have a really big age gap. I'm the youngest, and the second youngest is 10 years older than me.
Right. I could also apply the only child dynamic to my experiences because I was an only child for 7 years.
And same for me, because as I've been growing up, more of my siblings have been moving out. So I've definitely been an only child kind of situation at times as well.
And I guess for most people, they're closer in age with their siblings, so they may not have any of those only child characteristics, but we probably have the younger and only child, and I might have the older and only child both. So
yeah,
it's interesting. For me, being the oldest, I've noticed that the parents are stricter with the oldest kid. And I remember when I was little, I would have to provide my friends' parents' phone numbers anytime I wanted to have a play date. I always had to seek approval before going anywhere, and I had to tell my parents where I was going. Luckily, they never tracked my location, but I always had to be really transparent on what I was doing.
For being the youngest, my parents were less strict. My siblings will never not remind me of how less strict they are. I still was very transparent about where I was going, but I also feel like when they got the lessons learned from the oldest, they were able to be okay with me going certain places, and they weren't as uptight about everything that I was doing.
Exactly. And with me being the oldest, this is my parents' first time parenting. So it's new for them too, and they may not have known exactly how to go about it or the best way to go about it. And they just did what they thought was best, which is usually being more protective.
Yeah. I feel like something that's really interesting is a lot of friends that you have that are also the oldest child like you, that you can find the similarities with. That's what
helps you bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bonding with them. And same for the youngest, like being able to relate. So it's kind of cool to have our oldest sibling, youngest sibling relationship with you too.
Yeah. And then I know you've told me that sometimes you feel like I have been an older sister.
Yeah. But also, I wonder if, since you're the oldest and I'm the youngest, if we bonded because we had the only child in us and having those characteristics.
Because we both have really big age gaps with our siblings. So
yeah.
That is interesting. I haven't thought of that. Probably.
Yeah, ruminate for a second.
Yeah.
I would say another thing that I saw with being the youngest was you always have these certain expectations that you have to live up to with the oldest. I saw this in other families too. For instance, there was this family and I knew the oldest and they achieved a lot, and the youngest became a rebellious sibling. You see that you're either trying hard to reach up to the oldest sibling, what they've set for you, the bar, or you can take a completely different approach and just become rebellious. And I see that a lot too.
And being the oldest, you have to set the bar. You're trying to live up to your parents' expectations, which are usually pretty high because you're their first baby. I've been told a lot that I should be a good role model for my siblings, so that's where that pressure lies when being the oldest.
That's interesting. I feel like for the oldest, the bar is set by the parents, and then for the youngest, the bar is set by the oldest. Yeah.
The oldest can also cause parents more stress because they, like I said earlier, they haven't parented before, so it's also new to them. The oldest, they're living all these new life experiences, but also you have to think that the parents are doing that as well, because this is the first time they've ever raised a child. So you're both learning, and you have to overcome a lot of obstacles together, especially when growing up. There's a lot of things that happen as a teenager and when you move out.
What do you think was like one of the biggest obstacles you and your parents have with you being their first child?
Probably freedom, and when I started driving, and curfew, and what I was allowed to do and what I wasn't. And also starting college and preparing for college. That's a lot of work.
You had a curfew?
Mm-hmm.
What was your time?
10.
Oh my god, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had a curfew.
Which is so early, but I did sneak out, so.
Oh, I feel like I was never out that late. We had talked about it, and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna be at this person's house, but I don't think I ever got a real curfew.
I was sneaky.
I sneaked out too until we got cameras around our house. Sneaking out, that is just sibling to sibling. I feel like all siblings, if your parents are strict parents raise sneaky kids.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for the youngest, you're saying your parents are very stressed because you're kind of the guinea pig. You're both learning at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But for the youngest, I feel like by the time it gets to them, it can be kind of hard because your parents are very checked out, and they're, I wouldn't say tired of being a parent, but they've definitely loosened the reins.
A lot.
Yeah. But do you see that with your younger siblings?
I mean, my younger siblings are still young. They're about to turn 14 in July. So it's
no hard yet.
Right. So it's hard for me to be able to tell, since they're not in high school yet, but since they're about to be, I think I'll definitely be able to notice more. Being a teenager is where a lot of conflict arises.
They're getting freedom.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. With your siblings, you can either get closer to them by being like, oh yeah, dad was harsh on me when I was just starting to drive too. Or you can be like, dad isn't even being that hard on you and I had it worse. So how do you think you're going to take that older sister approach?
I mean, I'm sure I'm going to be jealous if they are a lot less strict, but at the same time, they were strict because they didn't know how else to be, and also it was just their way of showing that they care because they didn't want anything bad to happen to me, and they were just being protective. Being a teenager, I hated how much they were strict, but looking back on it, if they weren't, I think I would have made a lot more bad choices. And yeah, it caused me to be sneaky, but at the same time, I had self-control.
Yeah.
And thinking about if I'm a parent in the future, I wouldn't want a teenager going out and doing whatever they want. Like, obviously you have to set rules. I wouldn't be super strict, but I see why they were, because they didn't want anything bad to happen, especially being a girl.
Yeah.
Being their oldest and a girl.
That's hard.
And my mom's not even from this country. She's from Japan, where it's a lot safer. You can send your kids of any age out into public and not have to worry about anything bad happening to them.
Can't do that here.
Yes, she came here when she was 18, but she's scared of what could have happened since, I mean, teenagers are dumb, so
yeah,
a lot of the time. So I completely understand why they were strict. So I respect it a lot more that I'm out of the house and looking back on it, but in the moment, I would compare how they were treating me to my friends' parents, how they raised them.
Yeah.
And I was so jealous. Well, my friend gets to stay out until 1 a.m. and gets to do whatever they want whenever they want and never has to ask for permission.
I feel like that's more upsetting. Would you say it's more upsetting that you're seeing your youngest siblings get more of these permissions, or the kids your age getting those?
It was the kids my age, because I was angry about it when I was that age. But looking back on it, I don't really have any anger about it because I understand why they were strict. Because they were just scared and they cared about me. And I would rather have parents that care than
parents
do whatever
that let you do.
Right.
Yeah, whatever you wanted.
Because it's not like they're being strict because they want to be mean. No, they're being strict because they don't want anything bad to happen.
Yeah. With you being the guinea pig and your parents being stressed, whereas my parents were checked out, you can kind of see my parents were also checked out, not only not having as much stress, but also I feel like they kind of put in less effort at times with wanting to know my hobbies or getting less pictures than the first child. Those are kind of areas where I feel like as the youngest, I look to my oldest siblings and I'm like, I get it that they were hard on you because you're the first baby, but also I feel like you got given a lot more
attention.
Yes. and more effort than I was when I was younger. Do you agree?
I could definitely see how you think that. Since they were so protective, or since they were so much more controlling in a sense, that's also them putting in more effort.
They were more like that because they were paying more attention to you to be like that. But then now, my parents were probably less strict because they're like, okay, this is our 5th kid. We're tired. So you don't get as much attention. And that's where the youngest having less stress comes from. It's because we're not getting as paid close attention to as the oldest is.
You were talking about how the oldest probably had more baby photos too. It's not just that they paid more attention in the teenage years, but also when you were a baby.
Oh yeah.
And that's their first baby. They want to capture every moment, every birthday, every first.
But also, I feel like realizing that parents capture a lot with their first, because parents don't know really until, I mean, I can't say this for sure because I'm not a parent, but having your first kind of determines if you want more or not.
Yeah.
So that's why they can be taking more pictures of their first baby because
they might not have another one.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. Yeah. That would make sense.
Might be an only child.
So we just talked about the beginning stages of life. Now for the last stages of life.
I have been told by my mother that as the youngest, you're expected to take care of your parents when they get old. And I don't know if that was a hint at me, which, come on in, Mom.
She's telling you.
Yeah, she's like, take care of me, please. The youngest is expected, but please, please.
The oldest siblings are expected to be more responsible in setting that bar, like we said earlier, and being a good role model, but also taking care of the younger siblings and giving the younger siblings rides to places and cooking for them whenever the parents are at work.
Did you have to do that?
Yeah. It's not much of a hassle, but I'll give my siblings rides because they can't drive yet. And if they want me to, if they don't feel like it, I'll cook for them. And it's not like I mind it, but that responsibility is put on me since I am the oldest. The oldest sibling will be so tired of all of that responsibility, and once they grow up, they want less of it. They won't have to worry about less, whereas the youngest sibling wants that responsibility or could want it.
Yeah, I can see that too. I talked to my sister, Hope, and she basically said that when I was younger, she was basically the one momming me. I don't remember her being that mom figure at all, but then she kind of talked about it and was like, I feel like I got a lot of burnout because I was having to take care of you and having to get you ready for school. And I was like, I don't remember any of this. I'm probably going to end up taking our mom because she had to deal with me.
I am grateful about it though, because it's taught me how to take care of other people, especially younger kids.
Yeah.
And that's useful.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. I just made this connection. I'm not the biggest kid person, but I love old people. So maybe it was just meant to be like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that you'll take care of your parents when they get older? Or are you going to leave it to your younger siblings?
I haven't even thought about that yet.
No?
I haven't thought about that, no. I know that my little brother is closest with my mom, and I would say I'm the closest with my dad, but I really have no idea how that's going to look because I just haven't thought about it yet.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about that, having to take care of my parents.
I feel like since my siblings are so much older, that it's already been a topic of conversation of being like, who's gonna take dad and who's gonna take mom? Because I don't think we could do them together. My oldest sibling is 36. I mean, if they're ready to take them, I mean, go ahead. By the time I start getting older and I'm starting everything, I might have to take a parent with me and be starting everything with my parent. That's kind of scary.
Maybe.
Or comforting. Either one. So those were pros and cons of being the oldest or the youngest sibling. One thing I wanted to talk about before we go is the middle sibling, and there's something called middle child syndrome.
And middle child syndrome is the idea that middle children feel excluded or neglected by their parents because of their birth order. And we're not necessarily sure how true this is because neither of us are the middle child. Maybe we should have contacted some middle children before speaking on this topic, but that also means you can let us know.
Yes, let us know if you are the middle child
and you feel this way.
Yeah, I feel like it could be valid. I feel like it depends on every family as well.
Right. Like our Healing After Heartbreak episode, I think this stuff is very situational. Anytime you're talking about family dynamics, there are so many factors, but we just wanted to share our experiences and how we relate to common characteristics of birth order.
Before we go, I looked up different characteristics and I thought we would read the middleborn and the only child.
Just because a lot of this episode was us sharing our experiences as the oldest and youngest, we did not want to leave the middle children and the only children out.
The middle child characteristics are adaptable, independent, go-between.
Which I'm assuming is like being a messenger between two people.
I can see that happen. People pleasers, can be rebellious, feel left out at times, peacemaker, and social.
As for the only children, which could also apply to Anna and I, like we mentioned earlier, we have confident, conscientious, responsible, perfectionist, which that definitely applies to me.
Me too.
Center of attention, mature for their age, definitely applies to me.
Me too.
Seek approval, sensitive, and leader, which definitely applies to me.
I feel like I'm a mix of being the youngest child and the only child, and I feel like you're kind of the same with being the firstborn and the only child.
Which makes complete sense just because we do have those huge age gaps.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's fun that we can relate in that way.
Alrighty, guys. Let us know if you agree or disagree with our pros and cons of being the oldest versus the youngest, or if you agree or disagree from the middle child or the only child characteristics.
Also, be prepared to interact with our Instagram stories coming up, since our upcoming topics have to do with what you have experienced. I know that we were going to have episodes on navigating friendships, friendship horror stories, as well as navigating dating in your early 20s. So be prepared to let us know and share your experiences so we can touch on those in those episodes as well.
We'll also be talking about red flags and green flags in people that you are dating,
which will be a big part in that navigating dating episode.
All right, guys. Thank you for ruminating.
Bye.